So all that chatting I was doing beforehand, that was pointless because my mic was off. Sorry about that. I was just kind of filling time because I went live on the stream a couple minutes early. So it's very disoriented to get used to hearing yourself talking, but in like half a second delay. It's very disorienting. I noticed in the first video that I often started to talk and then kind of stopped and went slowly. That's why it's very disorienting. Like I say hi and then like half a second later I hear it in my head. It's weird. So anyways, I was just a quick recap of what you missed while my mic was off. I've got a console 1. It's a one-to-one control of a channel strip, and then there's matching plugins that I use inside my DAW. I have a few different ones. The SSL one is the one that comes with it. It's the best all-around one, and I usually just go with that most of the time, and unless I'm looking for something different. I have a couple other ones, some cleaner sounding ones that if I want something a little crisper, brighter in the high end, then I'll switch to that. Yeah, but I'll probably just be using the SSL for this one today. I think with the sounds that I've got, it's going to be a good one to use. Okay, and yeah, I'm just mixing the track that last week I composed and arranged everything. I had the cameras behind me back then because I was going to the synths, creating all the different sounds and coming up with the melodies and stuff. So you had to be able to see me on the synths. Today it's going to be all in the DAW. So you see I got Ableton up here. I'm going to be in the DAW all day, so I got the camera pointed directly at me, and I'll just be running through everything that I do. So what happened last time, after I shut off the camera, I went in and I recorded all the tracks. So let me just minimize myself. Boop. Sound effects are free. And what I've got here is you see the MIDI track, and then below it, colored the same, is the audio track. And I just name it by what the sound is, string pad. The system line is ARP1. So you see I go down here, everything's muted right now, so if I play there's no sounds, everything's muted. I did record one thing that you never saw on camera, some little intro effects. I still have to add more of that. When I'm done doing the mixing today, then I go in and do tweaking. I add some riser effects and some little swoosh sound effects and stuff. I might show that another time, but it's actually kind of boring when you see me do it once. Maybe it's more like a short where I could just quickly show you how to do a riser or something. But I'll be adding all those little sound effects and things after. Right now, today is the main mix. All the main elements, I'm going to mix them and get them working together, and then I'm going to figure out what they need to help smooth out those transitions and help build the tension and stuff. Beyond what's done in the melody and with the synths, like the System 1. I don't know if you watched last week, but when I was recording it, I opened up the filter and then I adjusted the scatter knob to build tension throughout the song. So this is what I do. I start off at the top. So this is my first one. I'm going to minimize my MIDI track as I get to it, just so it's down and out of the way and I know that I've done it. I'm going to unmute this track, and then the first thing I do, it comes from having worked a lot with analog synths. I don't have as many as I used to, but I still have some, and then especially some of my DIY stuff. Some of my DIY stuff, especially the early stuff, is really noisy. And even if it's not DIY, if it's just old analog stuff, there's a lot of just system noise coming through it. There's this constant just hiss in the background. And it's not bad with one, maybe even two synths, but when you have like 10, 12 tracks of that stacked up on one another, that system noise is just going to add up, and you're just going to have this loud hiss in the background. And like you can hear that on some old songs that are using analog synths, or even analog mixers, old analog mixers. But I don't want that, so what I do, first thing I do, every track, I click on the audio file itself, and then I go to this little envelope tab, and I set it to clip and gain. And then I zoom in on both the start and the end, and I fade it in or out. And this one is not an analog synth, it's a digital synth, the System 8, so it's not going to be bad, so I'm going to do a harder fade in. Something that has a lot of noise, I'm going to want that to be a more gentle fade in, longer, maybe a shaping into a bit of an S curve or something. So I'm just going to go front and back. This one trails out for a while, so I've got to make sure that I don't clip off that reverb tail. Give it a bit of a longer fade out. Okay, and then there's two clips on here, so I will do that again. And that's something I'm going to repeat for every single track. A lot of what I'm doing now is just setting the tracks up to get them ready to mix. And then I'll do the same thing here. Okay, before I go any further, one thing I should have done right away is my aux channels. So I usually do something similar to my aux channels every time. So I used to use an EQ8, but I was watching the Producers Lounge yesterday on Twitch. Shout out, follow if you don't already. Always 400. They were saying that the EQ8 isn't that great of an EQ, and to use the EQ3 more. I don't know. I like the 8 because I like parabolic, and so you can see what's happening, as well as just getting the visual in the background there, the FFT. But I'll go with 8 just because that's what I'm used to for right now. I don't have any complaints. What I usually do is throw in an EQ first, and then a reverb. Usually sorry for the squeaky chair, that's not me farting, it's the chair. What I usually do is my AUX channel, I will do a wider reverb, and then my B, I will do one that's more centered. Then it just gives me a couple of options when I am mixing stuff, if I want the reverb, if I want to sound wider, or even if I want the main sound to be centered, but I just want the reverb to make it wider and sound a little more spatial. Then I've got that option, or I've got the center one to keep it in center. I change them around a fair bit depending on what I want and what I'm doing. I think for this track, I want a lot of reverb. It's going to be very mushy with reverb. So I'm going to go with the Valhalla Supermassive. So sometimes I will go and put a reverb on an individual track, especially if I want something different or unique, or I want to do something special with the reverb. But a lot of times I try to use these two aux channels a lot. And maybe it's just in my head, but I think it kind of makes it sound more cohesive, like they're in the same space. All the instruments are in the same space if you're using the same reverb on all of them. So because it's an aux send, I'm going to turn the mix up to 100 because I just want only the reverb coming back in, not the original sound. And I'm going to make sure that the width is set up to 100. Okay. So I'll start there. I'll tweak this reverb later if I need to. Now it does have a built-in EQ. I like to see what I'm doing. Two things. I like to see what I'm doing, and then also, I don't know if that the EQ is post on the reverb. Something that I've had an issue with in the past is if I put the EQ after the reverb, then it's like it's cutting off too much of the brightness. Sometimes you may want that, especially for vocals, but a lot of what I'm doing with the reverb, I want it to kind of have that twinkle. And I find if you put the EQ first, you can take out what you don't want from the sound, but you don't dampen the reverb. So if there's some of those higher effects that happen within the reverb, they still make it through. Or if you put the EQ after, you're actually cutting out some of that spatial effect that happens in the reverb. That's something that was inadvertently pointed out to me. Well, he told me I was a remix contest for Kaboo, and he was really good with responding to everyone and giving you tips and advice on what he thought of your mix. He said mine was really good. It was in the top of the entries, but he didn't pick it, and he said one of the things he didn't like was that it wasn't bright enough, that there wasn't enough upper end, and I think that's what happened. My EQs were afterwards, and any brightness that the reverb tried to bring in, I squashed it out. I am sensitive to higher pitch sounds, so I tend to like to remove them. So part of that's me too, and that's just how I mix. Whereas I find Kaboo has a almost too bright of sound, especially using some of the synths that he uses. I find some synths like Prophet and OBX and stuff, they're just so, I think maybe it's if some of them use a 12 dB filter, I don't know, but a lot of them are just too fuzzy and bright for my liking. I like more of a smooth, like a Juno sound. Not that the others don't have their place, but just personal preference, just the way my ears work, basically. Okay, so back to this. I'm going to copy that EQ and dump it over here. I will adjust this EQ later, especially if I'm hearing anything happening. Sometimes I send something into the EQ and it just starts destroying the, into the reverb, and it just destroys the output of the reverb. So I'll go in and tweak it, but I've got a good idea of how I start off with this stuff. And this one I'm going to put in a plate reverb. I'm going to bring the width down a bit. Again, I'll adjust it later, but I'm going to start with 70. I like 3 for this, and again, I want it all the way wet. I don't mess with the drive. That can add a lot of weird stuff. The drive something, if I would do it, it would be on an individual track, not across everything. Okay, and just checking in on the chat quick. Feel free to ask questions in the chat if you want about my squeaky chair if you want. Maybe I can tighten up the screws and try to stop that before the next stream. Hopefully the audio's a bit better this time. I did a few things to fix that, and I hope I got a spare battery for my lights, so hopefully that doesn't run out this time. And because the light's so close now, it's a lot dimmer, so it should last longer. Okay, I got those set up so they're ready if I need them. Sorry, back to the strings. On the track, I'm going to drop in the soft tube console 1 plugin. And that might pop up on the other window here. Oh no, it's a bit confusing the way it works. The plugin pops up per channel, but it's almost annoying that way. Then you have a dedicated thing that I can use the hardware to pop up and select any of the tracks from within the hardware. So I'm just to start off, I'm gonna play this. I'm probably gonna bring the volume down a bit because I recorded it a bit loud. And I'm gonna adjust the EQ, and I'll tell you what I'm doing when I do that. So see all that stuff that's down here? All that? The root note of that chord is right here. Everything from 200 down, I don't need to hear this sound properly. If the sound was just on its own, I might want some of that to beef it up. But because this is going underneath stuff, and I'm going to have the bass coming in, I'm going to have the kick, I don't want it to muddy that up, so I'm just going to take it out. Now I've heard some people say don't do that unless you need to, but from my experience, especially with using synth pads, I always end up having to do it because everything just turns to mush if I don't. So right away I'm going to turn on a low cut and turn it up to bring that out. Here's my lowest note right there. That's the stuff that I'm really concerned about in this sound. I'm going to turn it down a little bit because I don't have a reference with other sounds yet. I'll come back and adjust volume later. And then for the reverb, this sound, obviously with strings I want it wider. I'm going to send lots of it to the A aux bus. Weird. I'm not hearing much of a difference there. Now it is there. It's not as wide as I want it. So I'm going to do a little trick here. Here's a trick to get something wider if you want and you don't have a widening plugin. I don't even know what all this stuff is. Wasted space. What is a wasted space? Variable sample emulation. Oh, that's cool. I don't want it right now, but I didn't even know that was in there. I think I got it on one of those sales. I think everyone's got stuff like that. Ozone Imager, huh. I've never used this plugin. Oh, Stereo-Rise. Right there, width. You know what? I do have a plugin I can use. Let's see. You know what, that's getting me where I need it to go, but I'm going to show you this anyway. Here is a little trick if you want to widen your sound and you don't have a widening plugin. Just drop in a delay, unsync the two. Put it a time, and then the first one about 10 milliseconds. The second one you can play with it, but usually somewhere around 18 milliseconds. And then the amount of effect is obviously dry wet, and you can play with feedback to add some weirdness to it too. But have a listen. Here's without. And then here's with, and I'll put it all the way wet. And then your dry wet can dial in the width. And then feedback, you can get it to start ringing. But that's a cool way to do it if you don't have a plugin like this. With this plugin, I like that. Go with it. Maybe a little wider. Why is that grayed out? Stereo-Rise effect. Oh, it's kind of like, it's like a stereo pan, kinda. I think that's good. Okay, let's move along. System 1, same thing, but this one starts right at the start, so I just gotta fade out the end. There's a lot of reverb and delay recorded in this. So clip, gain, do a long tail with a bit of a curve on it. There we go. Now this is, whoops, I did the wrong one. This is my main track. Okay, so back up here to plugins, Softtube, Console 1. Now you see how I'm starting, let me just make sure you can see that. I'm starting to populate the bottom here, and I can select from the Console 1 hardware down here. So now I'm on ARP 1, and again this is higher sounds. It's more of like the lead, the main sound almost. There is an actual lead that comes in later, but this ARP is the main thing to drive the whole sound, the whole song. So I'm gonna take out a lot of the low end, especially later on. I bring in some noise into this patch. I start to turn that up at the end, and that will just destroy my low end. So definitely I'm gonna put on a low cut. I might even need to do some more tweaks in this later in the mid and high, but whoops, I started turning the wrong thing over here. Okay. Strings are a little loud still. Sorry, every once in a while I just check to make sure there's no questions in chat. If you just joined, please do ask questions if you have any. Just mixing a track that I started last week. Okay, now here is bass. I wonder if you see the noise in this one, because this is an analog modular synth, a DIY module going through an analog mixer. So you don't see it, but I can guarantee that there is noise in there. So I'm going to fade it in, and then at the end I'm going to fade it out. Give it a little more curve there. Okay. Oh, wondering if the ARP needs reverb. It does have a lot on it. Added a little bit of both the reverbs, so it's centered and wide. Now I did hear, and I don't know if you noticed that, but when I turned up the B reverb, that plate does not like too many highs. I really started doing this every time when I started using that reverb a lot. That plate reverb, I love it. It just, sometimes especially brighter sounds, just causes it to resonate too much almost. Bass. Let's get a console 1 on there. I'm going to give just a bit of drive. Let's overdo it first. There's almost no overdoing it. I like that. Obviously too loud. There's a lot of variation in that bass. What it comes from is, I'm pretty sure that patch has 4 oscillators going into a filter and just overdriving the heck out of that filter. And what happens is the oscillators, 3 of them are the same note, same octave, but slightly detuned, and then 1 of them is a sub-oscillator, so 1 octave down. And as those detuned ones all kind of shift, the phasing changes and you get slightly brighter sound, slightly darker sound. So that's why you get all that variation happening in the bass sound. As of now, I really like that. I'm wondering if I need a billet of reverb on it for the higher end. Something wide. I might, you know what, I might just do, you know how I said sometimes I do something special for one of the tracks? This might be that case. I don't think that this is the right plugin for this, but I'll try it just because it's my go-to reverb. Sorry, I need to get up to the bass. We're going to try the drive, see what happens. It's too crunchy of a drive. I like smooth drive. That's why I love the DIY stuff that I do on my own. I filter the hell out of my overdrives and distortions. That's not bad, but it's not exactly where it was going. Maybe the Valhalla. Ooh. Too much in that low. Delete that. I hate stuff that gives you like weird parameters. What the hell is a TDR Prism? I don't even know what that plugin is. Input, output, Prism, bass. Oh, that looks pretty. Now I remember this. Yeah, I got it on purpose. One of the newsletters I subscribe to, so that's a good one to have. Sorry, I'm just kind of thinking of what I could do here. I might just go and try one of the good old Ableton reverbs and see how that compares. Just like a warm snow. Warm, long reverb. I think that's what I'm looking for. Oh, let's take this out of here. You know what? I'm kind of still liking this one best. There are different models too. I know you've probably never heard someone spend so much time working on reverb on bass of all things, but this is a weird track, more of an ambient thing, and I want that bass to really sound big. So what I've done, I'm trying to widen it just a little bit, but only in the reverb. So you get that initial bass hit straight on, and then the reverb happens. I want that bass to be louder than you think. My reference track for this, if you want to have a listen, is Time Sync by Lauren, where it's the focus of the track is the arpeggio, and when the bass comes in, it just sounds really massive and just adds a good feel to the song. I'm going for something along those lines. So that's in there now. Sorry it took so long for that one track. Oh, one thing I will do to the bass when I get to the kick is I'm probably going to sidechain the bass because it comes in so hard that it's going to drown out the kick. So I'm going to sidechain it down, just duck it a bit when the kick comes in. But I'll worry about that later when I get to the actual kick. Next track is Rev. Oh, this is a weird one to do now because it's actually a percussion. Usually I do percussion at the end. but this is a percussion sound from a synth that I was using. So again, first thing I do is fade it in and out. Just getting rid of the system noise that I don't need in there. And then console 1 goes on it. I'm pretty sure this is again going to have a lot of stuff down in the low end that I don't need. This is just this, it almost sounds like a reversed cymbal hit. Maybe it's like, you know, when a drummer does almost like a roll on the cymbals and then grabs it at the end. So it just kind of got whoosh kind of sound. There it goes. And there was a big hump down here that I do not need. So let's get rid of it. That seems good for now. I may need to EQ that a bit later when I get to the drums. I don't want it interfering with the hi-hats. I also don't want it interfering with the snare too much when the snare does crack. So I'm going to have to tweak it once the rest of the percussion is in there. So what happens is the snare's going, this sound is going to go rev up, and then right at the peak of the rev, the snare cracks. So I'm obviously keeping the snare centered, so I'm going to also keep this centered. But I will want reverb on it. So let's add that. That Valhalla is sounding weird. I don't know if you can hear that, but you get, remember I was saying how I EQ it before going into the reverb, and you can hear in there in the reverb that the highs still just kind of keep bouncing around afterwards. That's the kind of thing I was looking for. And obviously that volume is a little loud, I think, but I want that volume. It's hard to tell without the snare there, but I want it almost like, I want it perceptible but not standing out. Okay. Harp 2. This is an analog synth going through a DIY overdrive unit. Look at the amount. Look at all that. That's just system noise from the DIY overdrive. So obviously this is one, like I was talking about, where I'm going to have to fade it in for sure. And fading out, I'm going to want to smooth out that transition a bit. Did I? Oh yeah, I ended up putting this all the way through the track, but towards the end I'm probably gonna come back into this clip setting, or maybe in the track, and automate the volume to bring it down a bit, because I don't want it as loud at the end of the song. Oh, I didn't put that in yet. Drop a console 1 on it. This is just like this weird little repeating little phrase. I don't know if I would even calling it an arpeggio. Just a weird phrase that repeats. And for sure it's going to have lots of low end that I do not need. So. It's weird, that cut doesn't seem to be cutting it enough. You can still see a lot in there. What I might do is bring in the next one over here. Where are we going? How far does it go down? It doesn't go quite enough. Okay, this is one instance where I might drop in an EQ8 or something in here after the fact. I like the EQ8 for that because it's parametric. And I can see what I'm doing. I like to visualize it. And it's got that hard cut too. I'll have to see how that fits in later. I might try to raise some of the area in the mid so that it stands out better. Hold on. Let me just try that now. Somewhere down here. So just to explain what I'm doing, I'm raising the mids a bit so I can bring the overall level down, and that will reduce the volume of some of the low stuff around 100, 200, so that it doesn't interfere with the bass as much as it is right now. Now this is where I'm going to set it off to one side. I'm thinking the left. While doing that too, that will not only separate it from the center where the bass is, but it will also allow me to bring the volume down even further, because once you get that isolation to one side, you can hear it better, even though it's the same volume. You can actually bring the volume down and still hear it because you got that separation there. And I will send some of it to the center delay so it doesn't mess up with the stereo image too much. It sounds good with a lot of delay, actually. It really fits in the song now. Perfect. This one, so if you watched the stream last week, you never saw this one. Just some little sound effects that I'm going to use at the start. There's going to be more added in there as well, some little swishes and stuff. But this is just something I recorded off of one of my synths. And that's it. It's not much to it, but it just adding something so it's not just the arpeggio and hinting that more is coming. And like I said, I'm going to add some little swishes and stuff as well in addition. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I think my nephew's got his TV cranked up very loud. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It's hard to keep talking and focus on what you're doing while you're mixing at the same time. And I'm getting emails from work at the same time as well. Okay. Now for sure, this has low end stuff, but here it doesn't matter, because all I have is the arpeggio at this point. So I could leave those in if I want. I think maybe I will. I'll just leave it like that for now. What I want to do is definitely widen this one as well as lots of reverb. Let's just try lots of the stereo reverb first. You don't want to little more volume on that as well. You know, when the second part comes in, it's loud. Where was that imager right here? Let's use that again. I like that. It sounds a little smoother than doing it that little delay trick way I showed you. It's almost too much volume right there. Oh, I didn't edit this clip at all. Whoops. Editing the wrong thing here. I did edit this clip. Okay. What I'm going to do is just tweak that volume a little when that second part comes in. Okay, that's it. Very subtle. Like I said, those sort of effects and things I usually do later, and it wouldn't put you through the boringness of it, but I think it's good maybe to see some of it being done. Here's the lead sound. I can't remember if there's anything I really need to do to this other than EQ and volume. It is an analog synth going through some effects and stuff, so I'm going to do some fading. I am a sucker for a cheesy synth lead. I don't know. I try not to do it, but somehow it always ends up in every single one of my songs. I'm just a sucker for it. I love it. Any other cheesy synth lead fanatics out there? I got to be careful because later on this lead does have some lower notes, I think. Let's see in here. No, it doesn't. It goes up, but not down. Okay, perfect. Oh, hold on. One of those. No, that will bend up. Okay. I did some neat bendy stuff. If you remember from last time, I just had this repeating riff right here. And that just continued all the way through. And I said, I'm going to go and tweak it, and now I've done that. And I made it like a little guitar solo when everything comes back after the interlude and comes back into the main part of the song. Then the lead takes off and does like a little solo, and there's some synth bends and stuff. I'll just give you a quick listen. Now, now that I've got it in here with the arpeggio, obviously the arpeggio needs some volume adjustments. It gets loud near the end. But I'm thinking that that lead sound needs a little more drive, a little more beef heft to it. Some compression might help, but I'm going to go with drive, just saturating it. And I think that it gets its own reverb too. I mean, it's got reverb and it's got delay on it. I want just a little echo of a wider reverb though, just so that it sits better in this mix. And I'm probably going to go to my go-to rev plate by Arturia again. Wide. And you see, I use this time the drive in the rev plate because that little bit of crunchy in this sound works to help it cut through. Okay, I know what I'm going to have to do with this one, and I'll probably do it later because it'll be kind of boring, but I'll explain what I'm going to do. This lead keeps fighting with that arpeggio. When the lead has a soft moment, it disappears. When the lead has a brighter moment, it comes back. I'm probably going to have to go through. I'm going to go in this clip volume and I'm going to do kind of like I did with that little swish sound at the beginning. And I'm going to bring this up and down wherever I need to. So I'm going to end up doing a lot of automation on the volume only. Just not to even it out, but to help it compete with the arpeggio when it needs it. I don't think a compressor in this case would work because it would bring everything up all the time even if it doesn't need it. I only want to bring it up if it needs to compete against the arpeggio. So that'll be something I tweak later. A lot of this tweaking I do later after the main mix. Right now I'm just trying to get the main mix done. And so that's just something I've got in my head now that I'm going to go back and do later. Okay. Now this is another set of strings playing solo notes. It's like a stacked patch. Does have a lot of reverb on it. I might try to make it a little wider or something. I'll see when it goes. No, this one I'm thinking panning slightly to the right. That's what I was thinking at least. We'll see. So 1. I want this a little bit brighter there. Something's weird with that. Let me just see. It's not mixing. Wow, hold on. I know what I need to do. When the lead comes in, this needs to come down so it's not competing with the lead. Where does the lead come in? Right here. 10. Down maybe 10%. I'll see how that goes. That sounds better there. There, I like that. So the strings kind of set up that melody, and then they come down and the lead comes in doing something very similar and then takes over. Okay, for anyone joining, feel free to ask in the chat if you have any questions. Let me know how things are sounding too, both my rig and my setup, if my voice is distorted. For some reason, it always sounds kind of distorted for me in these headphones. I don't know if it's because I'm hearing myself through my head as well as through the headphones. Okay, drums. This is fun. Okay, starting off, same thing as that always. Just gonna Fade things in and out. Now, my kick is 2 parts. And is the snare? Yeah, the snare is too. I have a clean kick. I also have a kick that I ran through an old mixer and overdrove it like crazy. So I'm gonna do the clean one first. Then I'm gonna go back and take the distorted one, mix them together, see how much I need of each one, and just go from there. When I do go up to the bass and side chain, I'll probably take the clean one because it's, as you can see, the much shorter little spike there, and that's what I want. I just want that first hit to come in good, and then if the bass comes in after that a little louder, that's fine. At least for this track, what I'm doing now. Okay, so kick, and this one might be pretty loud when it starts out. Where am I here? Let's do it here, there's less stuff happening. Let me solo that. There's not as much snap in that as I thought that there was when I recorded it. Let me see. Right in there, I want a little more snap. It's not huge, but it's enough to make a difference, I think. And then when I bring in the next one, it's just gonna boom. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. I can't even hear it right now. I know there's still another part to come in, but I gotta go up to the bass and side chain it. So how you do this here, you go side chain input, and I tell it kick, and then in here, bass. Okay, now on this bass, when I use the compressor, I gotta turn on external side chain. There we go. Okay, let's go and add that distortion before I get too far into it, because that distortion is probably going to solve a lot of the issues, especially when it comes to not hearing the kick enough. Now this is another one where you're going to see in that old analog mixer probably. Oh, I can just barely see it. I don't know if you can see that on your screen, but there is a little wiggle there. It's not bad 1 or 2 tracks, but when you get it all added up over a bunch of tracks, that system noise turns into a hiss that you just don't want to have in your track. And if you just cut it, you hear it. You hear the cut more than you think you would, especially if you have headphones on. I know a lot from, I work in television, do a lot of editing for video. And yeah, you can really hear it when you edit with headphones versus without. Oh, I just lost some of my lights. And that's another thing. I'm editing with the headphones now, 2 reasons. One, because I'm hearing the feed going out. I need to monitor that. But also, I usually do all this with the headphones. And then I go back and listen through the speakers afterwards. The reason I do it with headphones first is, one, to hear all those little transitions like I was just talking about. You won't hear them as well through the speakers because you have all the room noise and stuff that kind of masks it. And then the other reason is I like to do a lot of my spatial arrangement during this first run through. And so I'll kind of get everything in a stereo field where I want it. And it's a lot easier to tell where stuff is when you have the headphones on. I find if I do it first through the monitors and then I put the headphones on, I end up with stuff panned hard right, hard left, and sometimes some, especially if stereo panning effects and stuff, they could sound really nice through speakers, and then you put a pair of headphones on and it sounds like you're spinning in circles. So I tend to do this first run through with headphones, then I listen through the monitors a bunch of times with the monitors and get it sounding good on them, and then I'll go back to headphones, monitors, headphones, monitors, and then I start trying different speakers. Right now I only have the 1 pair of monitors in this room, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4 other stereo systems in the house. One of them is mono. It's a single big loudspeaker, and I use my phone, my laptop speakers, everything. I want to listen on the crappiest speakers I can, like little laptop speakers, just to make sure it sounds good on that as well, because a lot of things change when all of a sudden the bass is gone, and if you don't have that click in the kick, you're not even going to tell that there's a kick there at all. It's all low rumble. So I tend to listen on a bunch of different speakers. But yeah, first run through, headphones always, catch all the little details and set the spatial arrangement. Then studio speakers. That's loud. Yeah, I keep turning that one down. The decay on that one is really long. I might add a little drive to this one. There, that's getting a little more of that click. Okay. Okay, this is weird. This is one time where I don't like what that mixer overdrive is doing. It's competing with the bass because it goes on for too long. Let me show you the difference between the two kicks. Right there. You look at that. Look how long. It's almost a quarter note longer. And that's competing with the bass, because what I was wanting was the kick to hit, and then the bass comes up and finishes. But this overdrive down here is going on for too long. So I actually prefer it without it. But then the problem I'm having is this kick doesn't have enough punch because I was relying on that overdrive to give me the punch. So I'm going to have to do something in here. I tried that drive. It wasn't quite getting where I wanted. Let's solo it and do it some more. I don't want that long decay. It's messing everything up. And that's what that drive is doing when I crank it up too much. Let me try a couple of simple options, and then there's this isotope one that just destroys everything. But okay, audio effects, drive-in color, drum bus. What's that do? Crisp boom in C. This isn't C. I don't think I want a compressor either, because that's going to bring the dynamics down, pull everything up. I want more dynamics, I think, and brighter. Let's see, maybe I can detune this, not just here. Ooh. Yeah, definitely not what I want. Boom down. Oh, you can literally set the frequency. Huh. What is this B flat? Hold on. Notes to frequency chart. I used to have this saved somewhere. I still do. It's just easy to look it up. This is saying 64.6 isn't actually C. Are they wrong? I don't know. $58, no. Yeah, 58.27. What? 58.27. Oh, that's what I want. Okay, let's have a listen. What did I do? I soloed it. Okay. Okay, I usually don't have to do so much work on my kick, but this time I guess it is hard to do this stream and listen to all the little audio details at the same time, so I think maybe I just kind of rushed through the kick and didn't tweak it as much as I should have. Basically, I'm blaming you. That's what happened. Okay, so right now that's exactly what I want happening, where the kick hits and then the bass comes in, but you can hear it. So it's EQing too hard now that there's more of the, sorry, it's ducking too hard now that there's more of the kick in there. So let's go bass. And I can adjust stuff in here. Release down and threshold up. Just a little tiny bit of reverb. Hardly anything. Okay, snare. Again, I got 2 layers of this. The snare, I don't know if I'm going to use 2 layers or not, but I recorded it just in case because I was liking how it sounded, but I also liked the kick. And it ended up not working at all. So okay. Well. Now again, snare almost always has way too much low content. In this, it won't matter as much. It will interfere with the bass, but not the kick, because this song, it's very slow, mellow, and it just goes kick, snare, kick, snare. They're never hitting at the same time. But I would still probably remove that low stuff, just because I don't need it. Well, the wrong one. Track. Now I really don't want to do too much with this snare until I get, because I don't like it the way it is. I want to make sure that I don't do too much until I get the overdrive in there, so I know what's really going to happen. Oh, I can see the noise. Look at this. You can see it there, that dark spot. Might be hard to see depending on your resolution, but for me I can see it. That's the kind of stuff I'm getting rid of when I'm doing this. Just making sure I fade in and out nicely. Okay. Now let's see, what does this do? What kind of damage does this do? I see why I liked it, because I've got that gated reverb on there, and it just hits that, saturates it so hard. I see why I liked it. Good call on that one. Makes up for the bad call on the kick. So obviously that's way too loud. There's a lot of low end in there that I don't need on a snare. And that overdrive, for whatever reason, it's really widening it as well. Odd. Let me get to a good spot here. Here we go. Play this. Just working on the balance between the two and the overall level. And I want some reverb. I'm wondering if I just put the reverb on the clean sound. I don't know. Let's see. I don't think that's going to work, but let's just try. I need some of that overdriven sound. And now I'm starting to hear with that rev sound from before how it's affecting with the snare. I think it needs to come down a little bit, but I'm loving it. Track 9. I love the snare. I don't want to lose the balance I have, but it needs to come down. So maybe negative 2.3 here. I'll go down by 1 decibel on both. I could put these into a sub bus and control them together. But I'm probably going to play a little bit more with the balance. Ah, there we go. Whoops. So negative 13.2. Okay. What I'm doing there is I got to fine adjust the volume. There's so much presence to that snare that it sounds louder than it is. I'm going to continue, and I need to listen to it through the monitors, I think, to really get a better sense of the balance there. But I think it's kind of where I need it to be right now. Okay, closed hats. These guys I don't have distorted. I don't care for cymbals distorted too much. Sometimes the crash sounds interesting being distorted. But hats, I didn't do them. Okay, let's see what we're dealing with the hats. Well, let's get to a good place first. You see they go all the way down to the low, actually. I don't need that. Now that delay effect that I showed you before, I almost always put it on my hi-hats. I don't know why, I just like it. So let me... So for anyone who missed it earlier on, drop a delay on a track, unlink them, unsync them, 10 milliseconds, and then you can play around with this one. I've done anything from 12 to 20, but I find usually about 18 is good. And now this right here, dry wet, that's your width. Oh, what is that? Pitch? Shut off the filter too, I don't need that. There's center, widening, full wide. Usually like somewhere around midway. Let's add some reverb to this as well. This rev plate needs a little more decay time. I'm going to send as much there. See, this is something with the two, I can kind of blend them to get somewhere in between the two, so the one's really wide on the reverb, the other's much more in the middle, and I can go into here and kind of play with it and get exactly where I want it to be. Just by balancing the amount of each. I don't know if you can hear that, but like the wide, you just get a little, just a little echo out on the wide, and then most of the reverb's in the middle. That's what I like for most of my drums. You just get this echo, you know? Like if you were in a large stadium and you just crack the snare, and it comes in from the sides. I don't want it that big, but I want a little tiny hint of that. Now down here, I could, because it's the open hats, I want them to actually sound like the same instrument. So I'm going to start off giving them the same reverb. And then I'll give the same EQ as well in a second here. So let me prep the clips. And anyone in chat, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Okay. Here we go. Oh, hold on. I need console 1 on it. And I'm going to copy this from here. Again, I think that's one that I need to listen to the speakers to really get it right, but I think that's kind of where I wanted it. Now the crash, just to save recording and more hassle editing my clips later, I just recorded one of them. I often do that, and then I manually go and place it wherever I need it. And then if there's ever an occasion that I need the crash quieter somewhere, it's easy to do that. So what was I doing? I was doing, okay. Okay. Oh, that was right. I don't know if I'm going to keep all these crashes, because just looking at it, it looks like a lot. But I'll listen through later and figure out if I'm keeping them all or not. Console 1. Crashes often have a lot of low end again that I don't need. So let's start here where there's less stuff. Uh-oh. Something's going on. Let me just save. My console 1 is not turning on the display. Weird. Uh-oh. That's not good. I don't know if it's a software issue or what. It says 1 unit connected. Huh. It's a hardware issue. Oh, please unplug the hardware and connect it again. All right, not a good ad for them today. But honestly, I love this. It's such a handy unit. Like I said before, it can be a resource hog when you've got on every single track and you've got like 50 tracks. And I'm using a very old computer too, to be fair. But I just love having the hardware. Like, as you can see, all the stuff in this studio here. I love hardware, and when it comes to mixing, this just makes it so much nicer. I actually enjoy mixing now with this thing, where before, doing all the stuff I'm doing now and having to fiddle with the little EQs with your mouse and stuff, I just hated it. That was like the worst part of making a song. Now I actually enjoy doing this. And this is the old one. They got a new one that's a lot better, that has the little displays and everything. I gotta upgrade and get the fader with it too. That'd be nice. But one day, when I get 1 million subscribers, then I'll get that. Yeah, look at that. That's just solid white noise from 20 to 20K. So yeah, I'm obviously taking that out. I don't want to subtract anything from my kick and bass. It's a bit loud too. I find with crash, I tend to go put it lower than I need and then bring it up until it's just right. Well, I often pan it too. I'm going to put this a bit to the left. I often widen my crashes as well. I'm liking that plugin that I rediscovered there. It's a smoother widening. That's weird. What is happening? There we go. I think this stereo-rise is meant to be used with mono sounds, because I didn't hear much of a difference with stereo sounds, but here with the mono one, a huge difference, and you can visually see it too. that was the last track. Okay, so I'm going to give it one quick listen through from the start to the end. But before I do that, I'll just quickly explain what else I'm going to do, because this isn't done yet. This is just the rough mix, just like if I had an assistant working for me, this is what they would have done, and I'd come in to do the tweaks later. What I'm going to do is all the parts where there's a transition, where something new comes in, or especially going to and coming out of the interlude section in the middle here, right here. Any of those spots, I'm going to do definitely a riser effect. I'm going to put white noise through. I always just use the, mostly at least, I use the analog synth in Ableton, white noise, sometimes band pass, sometimes low pass. Sometimes I add a bit of LFO to make it wobble on the way up, so instead it's a whoosh, it's whoop. And then I'll often add chorus, just kind of flushes it out a bit, fills it in. Lots of reverb, obviously. This one I want to add a few more effects, like cranking the resonance way up. When you're doing those little things with the LFO, it will really give more of that whistle kind of sound. And so I might layer, like it's not just going to be a single white noise opening up. It'll be white noise, one track with a low pass, another with a band pass, with the resonance cranked and whistling. And so I'll kind of play around with it, add a few different layers of them. And then I mentioned that with the lead, I have to go in there and adjust the levels manually. There's parts where the arpeggio just is way too loud and the lead's too quiet. So bring the lead up. So in those parts, and then with the leads louder, I'll bring it down. So there's going to be, it just, by the time I'm done, the lead's just going to be a zigzag of volume changes. But that's going to be something that I just have to play it through and listen over and over. No sense in you even watching that. I can just explain what I'm doing and why. And then listening through the speakers, get a better sense, and adjusting the mix that way. And then, yeah, like I said, different speakers and stuff too. When it's all done, I don't like to go crazy with mastering. What I want is to actually send my stuff to someone else to master. It just, I'm so like into the music, and I've got my vision, and sometimes I think that clouds me from hearing stuff objectively, and just like I'm too invested into it and have my opinions on this is what I like for whatever reason, right? Like in this one, it's a arpeggio. And I think if someone else could master for me, then they would look at it more analytically and say like, okay, this stuff needs to be adjusted here, this needs. So anyways, if I can, preferably someone else masters, but for me, for what I'll probably do on this track at the end is just maybe a little bit of saturation overall, and some mild compression, and that's probably it. I'm not gonna go crazy. That's probably going to be all that I'm going to do, but again, I don't know until I get there and I go to do it. But that's all I would do within Ableton. Now, if I do have to master this whole album myself, then I'm going to take it into, well, ideally I would be doing it in Ozone, but I don't have it. So I'll be bringing in to Audition, and doing my mastering there. And that's a lot more of just levels and maybe some very basic EQing so that one song flows into the next better. There's not big level shifts. There's not a very bright song and then a dark song, you know. So that's what I'll be doing there. Again, it's very subtle doing the mastering, just kind of evening everything out. And that would be the last step. But that doesn't get done until all the songs are done. And this is the second song now for this album. So it'll be a long time before that's. But in Ableton, maybe a little bit of saturation, maybe a little bit of compression. I'll see how it is when I get to the end. There is one mastering plugin, like a rack. I'll just show it to you because it's one that I like. And I will use it often. There we go. There we go. The MIDI Analog Master. So it's a little too much, but it gets towards where I'm going. Let me just show you a quick sample. Then I drop this guy on. I almost always turn down the drive because, or the saturation amount, because they oversaturated in this plugin. But have a listen now. I like what that does. Everything's more kind of vibrant. I do find that maybe the bass is too much sometimes. But if I do use a preset mastering rack, this is usually the one I go to, but then I go in and change so much that I'm like, why didn't I just start with my own stuff from the beginning? So, okay. Last thing to do, I'm going to play the song through from start to end. Again, this is not done. This is my first time listening through from start to end as well. Like, as you see, I've done this all live. So, obviously, there's going to be a lot of issues. But I'm going to be taking note mentally so that when I go back and do my next run-throughs and listen over and over, that I know exactly what I'm going to be going to and adjusting. So right now I'm just I'll shut my mic right off so you don't have the hiss, and we'll just play this through one time, and then I'll tell you anything I can see obvious in it, and then we'll sign off. Okay, that, I'm liking where it's going. It's got the vibe I was going for, definitely. There is a lot still to fix, and that's going to be more listening through the monitors. It's this is for getting all the little tricky details that you would miss, and then those are for smoothing everything out. So that's what I need to do now. A lot of levels need to be adjusted. A lot of things need to be adjusted mid-song. Like I mentioned before, that this second little arpeggio kind of blippy thing needs to come down when the lead comes in. I don't want it to compete. The lead needs a lot of level adjustments to compete with the arpeggio, the main arpeggio. The main arpeggio, I might do some more EQing on that, especially near the end when the white noise comes in. Because if we look there, I'm probably getting still a lot of stuff down there. Where am I? 14. It's hard to see the numbers in the dark here. Yeah, look how much is in there. So I'm probably going to have an EQ on there that I automate. That's where I like to use EQ3 when I'm doing automation, because there's less parameters. It's easy to just control. But yeah, I'll probably slap an EQ on there that I automate, and as that white noise comes in, I bring up the cutoff and just do like a high pass, bring up the cutoff so that it's more of the higher sounds, less of the lower mush. Yeah, and just balancing everything out. The drums still need a fair bit of work. They just sound like they're not meshing, but again, through the monitors, not the headphones. That's how I'm gonna get that done. So obviously I can't do that live because there'd be so much noise and feedback and everything with the microphone. But that's it. Let me know in the comments if you're watching this on a replay. Let me know what you think of the track, and I will be releasing the whole album later once I've got a full album ready, so you can look forward to that, and you got a little sneak peek of what's to come. Okay, so I will be doing this again next Wednesday. I hope to do this every Wednesday. So tune in again next Wednesday, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. So yeah, I'll see you then. All right, thanks.